Hi, I'm Tara from Marathon Mates. Just a few days ago, we ran the Gold Coast Marathon, one of the big three Australian marathon weekends. On this episode, we will recap the weekend and share with you the highlights from what was another awesome weekend. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the flying runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Flying Runner podcast. This is a special show for us, as this episode actually marks our very first year of the podcast. So, as many of our longer-term listeners will recall, the very first episode was released just after last year's Gold Coast Marathon. In this year that we've been recording, it has been a huge change for us all. So we've done, between the three of us, we've done the Berlin, Chicago, Tokyo, Boston, and Gold Coast marathons. And along the way, we have shared our highs and lows, many tips and tricks, and got to speak to some really incredible guests. I've had a lot of fun working with my co-hosts, Tim and Tony, and they keep it really real for our audience, which is great. So, guys, Tony and Tim, welcome to episode number 54, and happy birthday, Flying Runner.
Happy birthday to both of you, and wonderful co-hosts that you are.
Yeah, no, happy birthday, guys. 1 year. I can't believe how quick that's gone.
Yeah, we're doing well. I'm very impressed, and thank you to all of our listeners that, especially those loyal listeners that listen to all of our episodes, but thank you to all the listeners that are out there tuning in and, listening to us ramble on about running. So it's great. But before we talk about the Gold Coast, what are some of our highlights that we've had over the last year, guys?
All right, I'll kick this one off because I was thinking about this just recently, and I've really enjoyed. Every guest we've had on has been amazing and they've added value to us, but I've really enjoyed some of the 6-star stories. It was really cool to speak with Stephen and Kim Tudjman, who got their 6-star in Tokyo. And of course, we've had Terry Frew, one of our very first marathon mates around us, who got the 6-star legend. And he's still a legend in our eyes, of course. He just recently ran Comrades. Sarah Coltrana over there in WA keeps pestering me about race merchandise. And she was an amazing guest, 6-star. And of course, we had Hayden from 40 Runs community in the UK. So they really hit a chord with me. I've just continued to learn. And one of the things I look forward to is learning from both of yourselves and from our listeners and our guests. And whether it's how bad Tim's jokes have been when we first started out, or since then, some of the really good tips that he shared, it's all been just really educational for me. Now, it's been an incredible year for the podcast, but it's also been an incredible year, I think, for me and my wife, Sharon. Of course, going to Tokyo this year and grabbing that 6-star medal was just amazing. But I tell you what, enjoying the week, I really enjoyed the week just over a week, to be honest, in Chicago, prepping for the Chicago Marathon. That was awesome. The weather at Chicago was just perfect until 2 days before race day, where it dropped the temperature. So it was ideal for running. So Chicago really looked after me. Tokyo, of course, just fascinates me, the culture, the discipline, and how they combine the ancient world with the modern world. So it's been an incredible year. And thank you to all our listeners and followers, and you two for coming on the journey with us. What about you? What were some of the highlights for yourselves?
Yeah, I'll let you do that one, Tim, since we
Yeah.
both run the same races.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I guess I can't go past Rob De Castella. Having him on as a guest was one of the highlights that we had. I know it was very early on in our year and episode 5, and we're still fumbling our way through it at that stage. But he is by far the goat of Australian marathon running. I don't know if we'll ever have anyone in Deke's stature ever again in Australia. World champion, world marathon record holder, winner of Boston Marathon, winner of two Commonwealth Games gold medals in the marathon. Just phenomenal. And to have him on so early on and to give up his time to talk about the Indigenous Marathon Foundation, which is something he's so passionate about, really struck a chord with me. I guess there's been other guests, Team Kerr coming on from Ireland and talking about inclusion and their son Aaron and the journey he's been on to be included in things like the London Marathon. Who else did we have? SJ, Sarah Jane Hipwell, come on and talk about her running journey and how she started off running marathons and all of a sudden it led to this journey that she's on to 200 odd marathons that she's run since. So many great guests. I thank every one of our guests that's been on the show over the year for giving up their time and coming on and talking and listening to us ask some dumb questions at times to try and get some understanding of what they're doing and how they got to where they got. But they're the sort of things that get to me. I think I really enjoy the topics we come up with. I really enjoy trying to come up with things that might be important or might make sense to somebody out there who's trying to run and get a little bit better in their own little space that they're in. And I love hearing the feedback from some of our listeners when we're out and about. We kept on hearing it all weekend at the Gold Coast from people literally running past us that were talking to us about the show and talking about the comments and commenting about some of the things that we'd said on the show in the past and how it helped them. So they're the things that I really enjoy and what I'm getting out of the podcast at the moment, and really enjoyed the past 12 months.
Yeah, and I know that you, Tony, because you were wearing our Flying Runner podcast shirt, you had quite a few people coming up to you and introducing themselves that are regular listeners and having a chat to you along the way, weren't they?
Yeah, we had a couple of people say g'day, and I just want to apologise to them because after 12K, and we'll talk about the marathon a little bit later on, but there was a large percentage of that marathon that I was not feeling very friendly. And so, but I do thank you for saying g'day and sharing what you're enjoying about not just the podcast, but running in general. Really did appreciate it. Did make me feel really good, and it helped me get through what was quite a tough day for me.
Yeah, because I know you spoke to Angela and to Brian because they came up to us afterwards and said that they'd seen you. So yeah, they were very impressed. So
yeah, it's
good.
always nice when people introduce themselves. So thank you to everyone. Yeah, it was cool.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that, guys. Well, we might as well do the news so that we can get that done, and then we can have a chat about what our weekend was. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Sounds good.
All right, Tim, what's been happening over the world of running over the last few days or few weeks?
Well, the whole world of running in our life has come to the Gold Coast. So I haven't had a chance to really dig too deep into the world news this week. So I'm going to give you the Gold Coast Marathon results and give my best interpretation of some of these names. So apologies if I get them wrong. So let's start with the real blue ribbon event at the Gold Coast on the weekend. That was the Gold Coast Marathon. So in the men's, it was won by Timothy Captam from Kenya in a time of 2:08:52. Second was Bele Tilahun from Ethiopia in 2:08. And Kayoshi Koga came third in 2:09. So pretty quick time, sub 2:10, which is good. And top 3 runners sub 2:10. First place Australian was 8th place Liam Bouden, who ran in 2 hours 13 minutes. Thomas DeCanto came 11th in 2 hours 14 minutes, and Reese Edwards was 14th in 2 hours 15 minutes. So there's a good run there of Australian men in the top 15. with reasonably quick world-class times in there as well. So pretty good results there for the men. And again, yet another Kenyan wins a marathon around the world. Who would have thunk that would ever happen? In the women's marathon, it was won by Yuki Nakamura from Japan in a time of 2 hours 24. Kumishi Sihala from Ethiopia won it in a time of 2 hours 25.
They
And
came second.
Vissalini came second, sorry, and Vissalini Jepkesko from Kenya came third in a time of 2 hours 26. So between first and third, there was a time difference of almost 2 minutes. So, yeah, so I don't know. Tony, have you had a chance to have a look at the marathon since Sunday or had a
No,
look at the results?
I didn't look at the marathoners yet. So, but what really impressed me about the ladies event is the amount of Aussies that are sitting there in the top
Yeah.
15. You know,
Yeah, I was
there's
just about
8
to
of
say
them.
that. Yeah, so in fifth place was Sarah Klein, in sixth place was Abigail Nordberg, seventh place Miley Clark, eighth place Ringy, in 11th place Cassie Little, 12th place Gemma Griffin, 14th place Rebecca Lowe, and a Kiwi 15th place Rochelle Basil. So again, we had very strong representation in the Olympic qualifications for the women's. We had 5 women that qualified, or 6 women that qualified, and only 3 got through. So this is that next level of competition, I guess, that's coming through at those people. So, and it would be remiss of me, one of our guests that we have had on in the past, Jen Kellett, ran the marathon as well as ran the half marathon. She did the double on the Gold Coast on the weekend. And looking at her marathon time here, she won her age group again in 3 hours 53 after running a half marathon the day before. So
And winning
69
that
years.
age group too.
Yeah, 69 years of age and coming first and winning her age group in the marathon in 3 hours 53. Just
And
amazing.
just weeks after doing Comrades. So,
1
Yep.
month after doing Comrades.
And
So,
another one is Claire
Claire,
Wall, another one of our friends. She came third in her age category, same age category as Jen, but she also did Comrades 3 weeks ago as well. So she came in at 4:08. So that's pretty impressive work from both ladies to do that.
pretty crazy. So, yeah, as you can imagine, we've only just got back from the weekend. We're only just recording now, so we haven't had a chance to watch the marathon, but by all reports, they were pretty good races. In the half marathon, in the men's half marathon, first place went to Andy Buchanan from Australia in 102.25. Second place went to Isaac Heaney in 102.27. So there was only 0.2 of a second between first and second in the half marathon. And in third place, it went to Shunsuke Shikama in 102.28. So between first and third, looks like it was a sprint finish because there was only 0.03 of a second between first and third. So
it
I
was
haven't seen the finish, but it would have been pretty amazing.
It was a good race, and I've got to do a huge shout out there to Isaac. Do you pronounce his name Heaney? Because he
Hayne, maybe, yeah.
he had his name Ballsy on his top, so that was his name. And it was the first time he'd ever done the half. He was pretty well known as a 10K, and he goes out hard, hence the nickname Ballsy.
Yep.
And the commentators kept saying, "When's he going to drop? When's he going to drop?" And he didn't drop. So, but
No.
Andy Buchanan came out of the club. He was probably third in that pack of 3, and looked like he was going to lose touch with them there for a stage. But you know, that last 2K stretch along the water before you turn into the finishing straights, Andy just powered through that and just took over and just dominated from then on in. So my good friend Cameron Avery from New Zealand came 6th.
Yep.
And once again, he's a ballsy runner too. When the 3 Japanese leading contenders made a move about 12K in, I think, Cameron went with them. And he was the only one. So the Japanese sort of had a little bit of a break and then the Aussies came back, but Cameron went with them. And I think that may have been why he dropped off towards the end. But 103 is a great time for Cameron
Yeah.
Avery, the swoosh boy. So
PB, I think it was, and an
mm,
Oceanic top 3 position for him.
yeah,
So
placeholder. Yeah.
very, very happy for him. In the women's half marathon, Leanne Pompini from Australia ran it in 109.20. Jess Stenson came second, so she's representing Australia at the Olympics in the marathon. So she went out as a training run, set a time of 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 8 seconds, which is a new PB in the half marathon for Jess Stenson. And pre-race favourite Sarah Hoare from the USA came third in 1 hour, 10 and 54. So again, looking at that, it looked like a pretty good race all the way down the finishing chute.
Yeah, it was. And that race, once again, Jessica looked so strong. And
Yep.
there were stages in that race that you thought that she was going to take it on. There were stages where Sarah was, because when the women are running the half and there's usually blokes around them as well.
Yep.
And it was quite a big pack, and Sarah was right at the back, and there was some real concerns about how she was going to get through it, but she obviously did. But Leanne just once again just powered through. About 5Ks from home, she made a bit of a mark, and it just was enough to get her there. So it was a great race. It was a really good race.
Yeah, no, they all looked pretty good. And then on Sunday they did the 10K men's race and the women's race. In the 10K race, Haftu Strintzos from Australia ran it in 28 minutes and 53 seconds. Jack Bruce ran it in 29:33 for second place, and Dale Carroll came third in 29:48. Again, sizzling quick times, 28 minutes for a 10K race. That's just flying. And in the women's race, again, top 3 Australian were Australians. Caitlin Adams won it in 33:23, followed by AB Robinson with 33:43, and Melissa Duncan in 33:47. So again, very quick times from the Australian women. And in fact, Australian women held the top 7 positions there from Singaporean Vanessa Lee. So very good, strong running stocks here for Australia. In the men's 5K race, and Tara and I saw this race. We were surprised at how quick they were going. First place went to Toby Powers from Australia in 14 minutes 37. Second place went to Toby Chippendale in 14:59, and third place went to Jordan Skelly from the United Kingdom in 15 minutes and 14 seconds. So very quick times. In the women's 5K, Olga Furzova from Australia ran it in 15:57. Georgia Wincup came second in 16 minutes 20, and Brittany Khan came third in 16:35. So again, very quick and respectable 5K times, a lot quicker than what Tara and I ran the 5K in.
Hey, we'd done a half marathon like 2 hours beforehand, so you can't prime us athletes too fast, Thanks, Tim.
It is funny when you see them all warming up for a 5K run, and we've just come over to use it as a shakeout run. It was quite funny when we're walking over to the start line and they're doing their sprints to warm up, and it's just like, why? It's just a 5K.
If I could run a 5K in 14 minutes and 30 something seconds, I'd be doing a warm up too. So
that's it.
look, we were watching them finish as we were going over the start line almost. So that's the sort of difference it was. All right, let's talk about the weekend, guys, and how we all went. I might start with you, Tony, if that's all right. And we'll start with the Expo as we always do. So what were your thoughts on this Expo?
Well, I love a good Expo, and you know that. But what you don't know is that Sharon doesn't love any Expo, right? So we're always under time pressure to get in and get out. But, let's start off. Gold Coast Marathon, always exceptionally well organised Expo. Never, ever I've had an issue. What they did this year with the timing, it seemed to work as well. So you had to book a time to go get your bib. So fantastic. Once again, very well organised. It's always good to see friends. You get the feeling of the buzz that everyone's got. I sent through to Tara in the group chat a photo of one of the women's running groups that were there. And on the back of the shirt was, "We would run faster if we stopped talking." So hence the reason why I sent it to Tara. I just thought it was absolutely relevant. And funnily enough, the ladies were talking to us when we were talking to Murray Marr and Michael at the Travelling Fit counter, and one of them is coming to New York. So very, very, it seems really these like meetings, they're either divine intervention, I think, or it's just massive coincidences. But anyway, I like a good expo. I'm a bit of a geek. It's good to touch and feel some of the new stuff. I loved some of the new ASICS shoes that were on display, and I've been itching to have a look at the new Meta Speeds, which is their race shoe. There's the Sky Paris and the Edge Paris. And I could not get over how light they are. They're like 6 ounces, and they look magnificent shoes. But I wish there were more shoes there. And I know ASICS is a sponsor, and they've got the right to say who goes and who doesn't. But it's always, I just like that touch and feel around expos. So it's just a shame it was only the ASICS. I picked up the pain pods after having a bit of a test on my right calf, which, ladies and gentlemen, just bear that in mind. Right calf. The pain pods were used on my right calf, and I just thought that what a cool little invention. So we got some of that. So outside of that, it was an expo.
I have one just over behind me, actually, a pain pod, which we bought a number of years ago at the Expo. They're really good. For those that don't know, they're just a TENS machine, so they're a electronic stimulator of your muscles, essentially, but they feel good when they go on. So, yeah, we like the Expo. What do you think of it being reverse design this year? It was a bit back to front for me. You normally go in and the counters are on your left where you get your bibs, and then you turn right and go through the ASICS store and snake your way through the Expo. This one was everything was on the right and you had to turn left. It was sort of a little bit different, but same old, but not the same.
It definitely works well, the way that they lay it out. They definitely have a really good layout. They have a very good feel of what people want at the Expo. They don't have a lot of junk that you don't need for running. One of the most important things. They do have their major sponsors there, that's fine. Like, that's what happens. And, you know, who doesn't want to promote or help out the Gold Coast Children's Hospital anyway? Like, if you can enter a raffle for $2 for, and it helps out children, big deal, but they're a major sponsor, so that's good. But yeah, there wasn't any roofing companies or hair curling companies or makeup companies, so I was quite disappointed that I couldn't get my hair curled or my makeup done before my marathon.
And no CBD oil companies, because we just
not legal.
We're just not that liberal here in Australia.
No, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, no, I always like the Gold Coast Expo. As you said, Tony, it's a great place to run into friends and catch up with people. We took our son Patrick, who was running the half marathon with us, and he always likes all the little freebie giveaways. And we were almost out. Like, we'd sat and talked to everyone for about 3 hours almost at the Expo. We were almost out, and he goes, "Oh, there's a protein place," and I'm like, "Oh, all right." So I go down the other end of the Expo. It's like right at the end where we're about to leave, and he's hanging out and he's talking to these people. And I'm like, "Tim, can you go and get Patrick? He's talking to somebody about protein for too long." And so Tim goes down, and then I lose Tim. And then I'm like, so I go back down to go and actually find both of these two that had been chatting to, believe it or not, Mel, who makes her own protein and used to work with Tim. So it's Body Bods protein powder, and it's an all natural, and it's designed really well for female recovery. But
we're not endorsing. We're not endorsing.
Yeah, we're not endorsing anything. But it was just so funny because I just lost both boys to talking to another person we knew right as we were about to leave. It was like, So
it was funny. He did pick up Murray and give her a big cuddle and almost snapped her in half because she's so small from travelling. But yeah, no, it was quite good.
Yeah, no, it was a good expo. So obviously we then all did the expo, but Saturday was the start of the race day. So Tim, you might as well start with this one.
Yeah, so day one is for us. Tara and I, we did the half marathon on Saturday, which we talked about last week. So this year we ran it again with our son Patrick. It was his third ever half marathon, and I guess our approach was let's go out, take it relatively easy, run with Patrick for a while, see how comfortable he goes. If he wants to run a bit harder, he can run a bit harder, and we can just cruise behind him. And ultimately we all ran together for about 16 17 k's, and then he started to slow down. ITB started to play up, so we got him home 2 hours 35. It was quite tricky conditions on the day. It was squally winds, it was rainy, rain periods, it was cold and quite cool, and the breeze, as I said, squalling from sort of left, right, front, back, a bit all over the shop. So it wasn't ideal conditions, but got through it in about 2 hours 35. Massive amount of people running the race. I don't know what the official numbers were, but it seemed like it was a lot bigger this year than previous years for the number of people in the half marathon. The course itself is the usual course. It's a great course out and back. Great scenery and great views. So we had a great time, enjoyed it, saw lots
And
of people as usual.
volunteers. Yeah, the
And
volunteers,
yeah,
you cannot fault any of the volunteers at Gold Coast in any way, shape, or form. They're amazing. So, yep.
yeah, so we
There
did
were
that.
9,388 finishes in the half.
Wow.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think that's bigger than most years. So that's a big effort. I know for the whole weekend they had more than 30,000 separate runners running. So which is their most they've ever had.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the medal, I must admit, at the end, you get your medal and your shirt. Can't fault it. The medal was a decent sized bit of bling this year, bit of weight to it as well. So yeah, no, it was really well done, the half marathon on Saturday.
Yep. No, it's the half marathon. There's always a lovely course as well, because you're running an out and back course. You always see a lot of people on the way out and on the way back. So it's a really, really good course. It's a really nice way to catch up with your friends. So after the half marathon, Tim and I had about an hour and a half, and then we went and joined in with the 5K run, which was a little bit of a shakeout run for us. We just took it easy, had some fun. We found one of our running friends that we run with out at Sandgate. So big shout out to Mary. She ran with us for probably maybe 4Ks, do you reckon, Tim?
Probably 4.5. We met her just
Yeah.
after the start, so
Yeah.
so bump into her.
She joined us and kept us honest at being not pushing it too hard as well, which was really, really good. She's a lovely lady and kept us company. It's a nice event actually, because it runs the tail end of the half marathon course. So you just go out and back a little bit on the half marathon course. So it's actually a really nice one. It's an all ages event as well. As long as you've got a parent with you, if you're under the age of 16, I think it is. So,
Yeah, and I think that it's like an hour and 10 minute or something, or hour and 15 minute cutoff or something for the 5K. So it's pretty generous. And for the half marathon, it's a 3 hour 20 minute cutoff. So again, very generous. So allows a lot of people of all ages and all capabilities to actually be included and have a go.
Yeah.
For 5K, we just, as Tara said, we just took it easy, did it as a bit of a shakeout run. About 34 minutes, I think, 34, 35 minutes we ran it in. So about 7 minute pace, and just cruised and had a chat and a laugh and enjoyed the extra 5Ks in the legs.
3,021 finishes of the 5K.
Oh, there you go.
3,021. Wow.
Excellent. So that's a big number for them as well for that event. But there was a big special going for the Black Friday sales where Tim and I picked up our ticket, and it was like $30. So it was pretty good price for a 5K event. Nice little medal that you get with it, and I've even got a shirt the same as the marathon shirt, just a different colour. So
Yeah. Nice shirt.
yeah, they're nice shirts. So that brought to the end of day one after we'd all recovered. Well, Tim and I had recovered. We wake up on Sunday. It's the big event, marathon. So, Tony, you drove down for the day. Tell us about your day.
Yeah. So 3:30 wake up. Yeah. We might think a bit differently next year, I think. I was saying to Sharon. So we might be spending the weekend, I think, next time. Because, at the end of the day, I think your body's not ready when you're waking up that early, but still, no excuses. Great day, really excited to do it. One of the really big exciting things that happened was out of my photos, there is a flying feet photo. And as we know, we all love our flying feet photos. It doesn't happen too often for someone like me. And the fact that this happened down the finish line after what I went through, I'm pretty stoked. But anyway, marathon, the race itself, I like the course. The only bit of the course I don't like really is when you're heading back out to Runaway Bay, running north. It's a bit dreary after what you've been. You're spoilt by running along the beaches of Surfers and Main Beach and whatnot. So that was the only bit where I sort of felt a bit flat because of what I was going through anyway. But the interesting thing, I prepared for a struggle from 25K. I knew I was going to do it tough from about 25K. That's where my training had taken me. I just didn't think the struggle would start at 12K, which it did, unfortunately. But I look at it in all the positives. So I tore my calf. My calf popped at 12 and it popped again at 19. So it's
Was
really
it your right calf or left calf?
It was my left calf. So, and it was on the inside of the calf, which very rarely has been an issue for me. But yeah, at the 12K, it went, and then it went again at the 19K. I knew when it first went, I was going to struggle, and that's where I sort of caught up with you guys for the first. Actually, I caught up with you before the calf went because we took that selfie, and
Yes.
Sharon said you could have looked at the camera, and I said, "Oh, okay." But anyway, so my wife gets up me for everything I do. By the way, listeners. But yeah, so I was.
She's not as bad as you say. We need to get her on one time and actually, let the listeners make their own mind up.
Give her the right.
Lovely,
Give her
lovely.
the right to reply. Yeah. So
Yes.
Sharon is lovely.
So I tore my left calf, popped again at 19. It's really interesting when I look at my timings. That 12 kilometer, that kilometer at the 12K was my first time I went over 6 for the race. I was roughly sitting at that 6:30 mark, feeling really good. Then all of a sudden, this 8:35 pops in. And then at the 19K mark, once again, I'd got it back and I was running in about that 7-minute kilometer range. And then I threw a 9-minute kilometer in at the 19-minute at the 19K. So that's why I know it was those 2 times that I did it. But I look at it in so many positives. 6 months ago, to me, when I look at my 5K split, I was at 31 minutes. 6 months ago, I wouldn't even have thought I could run 5K in 31 minutes, let alone the first 5K of a marathon. And I remember doing my first park run, and if I'd broken 36 minutes, it would have been a PB for me. So to think I was 5K feeling good in a marathon at 31. I then at the 10K, I was 103. Once again, I wasn't even thinking of running. My best time for a 10K 6 months ago was 107. So here I am 10K into a marathon at 103. I just feel really, really lucky to have had the training that I did to be able to do some of these things. Even my half marathon time. So considering what happened to me at the 12 and the 19, my half marathon was 2:27, which was my previous best ever half marathon time done in 2018 or something. So, it was just an amazing.
And most of that half marathon was into a headwind too. The first 18 kilometers was into a headwind.
And don't
Yeah.
forget, you also stopped and gave me a cuddle. I think it must have been around about 18K mark. You actually stopped
Yeah.
and gave me a big hug as well there too. So
Yeah.
that probably didn't
So
help
it
the
was,
time.
it was, it was, I'm still blown away. Um, I got my PB for the marathon at 5:29:30. I really thought worst case scenario, I'd break 5:30. And I got as close as I could to a worst case scenario, and I beat it by 30 seconds. I'm probably going to be off my legs for probably 2 to 3 weeks at the moment, the size of the calf. But I still look at it. I was pacing myself on a pacing app. I was above the pace I needed right up until 25K, and then it just disappeared. And I stopped looking at that particular data screen then because I didn't like seeing the red. So I just got back in as much as I could. What really impressed me when I did my calves both times, people stopped, asked if I was okay, because they could see, obviously, when you do your calf, there's a sudden jolt like you've been shot. And then a very slow ginger walk trying to get across. So a lot of people showed concern and asked if I was okay. I don't know what you necessarily say in those situations. Yeah, I'll be right. Just keep
Leave
going.
me alone.
But
Yeah.
once again, just really grateful for that people actually stopped to check that I was okay. So and just for all those people that did say good day, just I wasn't as friendly as what I normally might have been because I gritted my teeth and I just needed to get through. But a big shout out to Kay Mass. Of course, she's been one of our previous guests. Um, I think basically the last 10 or 12 kilometers, we were sort of neck and neck the whole way in various forms of discomfort. So, and as we're coming down that last 2K stretch by the water, the 5:30 paces ran past us, and she said, "Tony, there you go. You've got to get them." Anyway, needless to say, I got them and I beat them. So, but it was.
Well
I
done.
really, apart from the calf, I just really so many positives that came out of that particular run for me, and it's really opened my eyes on what I could potentially do if I get these calves right. So, but
Yep.
anyway,
I'm so impressed with you, Tony, because I know how hard it would have been to keep running on calves like that. You could have easily have just pulled out of that and just said, no, stuff this. You dug deep, you kept going, and all through that pain, you're like, I'm doing this, and you beat your time. So whichever way you look at it, that's a massive, massive improvement. I would be super happy with myself if that happened. I
yeah.
would be really impressed with that.
And a big shout out to Sharon. She came home in 6 hours 14, and
Yeah.
considering the training, the hiccups and hassles she had with training, and the pain that she still gets in her shins, just a massive effort. And she
It's also
so proud of her. So
it's also
Absolutely. And
the
when we saw her on course, she looked happy. She looked like she was no, she really did. Like, I mean, and there is photos up on Team Alice with her on there. She actually was quite happy. Like
because
she
Tony wasn't with the nagging her all the time.
come on, let's go. We can do this.
she did an
Yeah,
amazing job.
yeah,
She
she
really
did.
did. Yeah.
The funny thing there is that's the first time you've run the marathon distance by yourself, and I think
Yeah.
it's also the first time Sharon's done it by herself. So it is a different mindset, isn't it?
Oh, it is completely different mindset. And
Yep.
Sharon ran about 12 Ks of the Aussie Outback Marathon by herself because
Yes,
that's the only DNF I've ever had.
that's
And there's a
right.
story behind that, but I won't share it.
Yep.
But yeah, so she's done the finishing of a marathon by herself, and but yeah, it was our first one together. But I'm already thinking about next year and extending the training and sitting
Doing
on
the
doing more distance, like hitting a distance and then staying there for a week or two and having a couple of rest weeks along the way. So extending the time. I'm just thinking, yeah, there's a sub 5 sitting here, and I
yep.
know it's there, and I wouldn't
It's
have
just
got it
about
this time, but
yeah.
I know now what I need to be preparing forward to do it
It's
next
about
time.
strengthening and toughening the body up through a long training program.
Yeah, and maybe losing some of this body as well. That might be a good place to start as well. Maybe that might minimize some of the load. So what about your marathon day, guys? We saw each other on course, and you came home a little after me. So but you seem once again to be out there making friends and taking selfies. So
Yeah.
is that a Team Ellis tradition on a marathon day?
Well, it wasn't meant to be that way, I must admit. So, worst thing that happened is that come Wednesday, I started to get sick last week and got a head cold, which started to trickle down into my throat and become a throat sort of infection or something like that as well, all at the same time. So by Saturday, I was not feeling that good. Did the half marathon, as I said, with Patrick and Portia, and then made the call late Saturday
No,
night that it
Patrick
was
and
just not
Tara. Tara.
with Patrick.
I'm Tara,
Patrick.
not your daughter. Yeah.
Oh, Patrick and Tara. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, I'm tired. I'm tired. Um, so we did the half marathon with Patrick and Tara, and then made the call on Saturday night that I was going to run with Tara for the marathon and back it off. So made the call to listen to my body, not push myself, and not do any damage to my health long term, which can happen if you're running faster or exerting your energy when you're not feeling well. So made the call, ran with Tara, and we had a pretty good day. I think we went out wanting to go at a similar sort of pace that we did in the half marathon, just cruise through the first sort of half or so and see how we feel. We got through the sort of first half. We had a little stumble there along the way, didn't we, Tara? Where Tara
Oh,
sort of fell over again and tripped over something on the ground, and
yeah,
we
maybe a
got her
cat
up.
tie or something. I'm a bit
Yeah,
stupid, but yeah, fell over
yeah,
about 12 k's in and didn't hit my face this
15,
time at least. 15 k's was it?
15
Yeah,
k's. Yeah,
yeah. And
but
had
then
skin off the knees and elbows, and I'm like, oh, I think I might just slow it back here.
yeah, but still got to the halfway point in 2 hours 35, which was the same time we ran the first half on the Saturday in the day before. So I think it was 2:34 and 30 odd seconds we ran the half with Patrick, 2:35 or pretty much 2:35 even for the half marathon for us on the Sunday. So we knew at that point we were in a good place to make it home pretty comfortably, well within the cutoff of 6 hours 40. We've talked about in the past that this was a challenge for us. It's not about times; it's about completing the three races that we were doing. So we backed it off a little bit, and we just walked around it all the way back. At the end of the day, taking selfies, smiling, saying good day to people, thanking the volunteers, high fives to the crowds, doing all the things that you do when you're at the back of the pack, having fun. And yeah, we got there in the end. The last 10Ks, we met Mary again from the 5K race. So she was doing the 5K and the marathon double. And the last 10Ks, we met with her and got her home for a PB, which was good. And there was another lady, Welsh Kitty. I don't know what her full name is, but that was the name on her bib. And she speaks with a Welsh accent. So whoever you are, Welsh Kitty, if you are listening, we got home
Well
because
done.
of
Yep.
yeah, and we were working all together as a team of four to get ourselves all home together. So, it was quite an enjoyable last sort of 10Ks catching up with people. There was another guy there who was running his first ever marathon and was debating whether or not he'd be able to make it home in time before his cut off. His plan had gone into shit and couldn't work out where he was or what he was doing, and he just wanted to know if he walked the rest of the distance, would he be able to make it all the way and get his medal? And I said, yeah, mate, you'll get in about 5 hours 40. And he got in around that time. So, whoever that guy is, it's his first marathon. It'll be memorable for him. So that's all we did. We just helped people at the back of the pack and just enjoyed the challenge, didn't we, Tara?
Yeah, it's always fun. Look, I actually really enjoy being one of those back of the pack people. You I just you cross the road and you take selfies with the people on the other side of the road. You go over the other side of the road. You take selfies with these people, and it's just about having some fun. Look, if I'm not having fun when I'm running, I'm not going to do it. So I don't really, as I've always said, finish lines, not finish times. And it was a challenge for us, as Tim said. So um, I certainly don't really care about what time I did it in, as long as I finished. I think it was maybe 5:45, maybe something. I don't know.
5:45. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So that's how much interest I've got in my finish times. Yeah, as long as I finish before the cutoff, I'm happy. You know.
Yeah. I think Sharon and I have sort of reassessed what we're doing for Sydney now as well, because Sydney was always going to be a training run on the way to New York, and it might even be less of a training run and more of a walk see. And it's a good thing that we know the 7-hour paces in Sydney, because I think we might be spending a lot of time with them. And interesting, and a big shout out to Kim Tudjman. She reached out to say congrats on the time for Gold Coast, but Kim's torn her Achilles, and she's now in a situation where she's got to reassess what she does for Sydney, because I'm not sure if they're coming to New York. I think they might be, but anyway, Sydney we definitely talked about. So and of course Stephen's one of those 7-hour paces, so she's just thinking of walking, doing that pace with Stephen. So which might be a good thing. And I do have to shout out to Carson from my workplace, who ran the half, his very first half on Saturday in a time of 2:12. He was hoping to do less than 2:20, so a wonderful PB for Carson, really trained, very disciplined and very detailed. And then the ops manager at work, Andrew White, ran only his second marathon, gunned it and did 3:32. So, and everyone that knows Andrew, an incredibly results-driven, intense young leader. Well, I say young, he's in that early 40 category, but 3:32. But he had a ball, he said. He was slapping hands with kids on the side of the road and doing the power up. So to run 3:32 and still be, enjoying what those marathons bring is just a massive effort. So Gold Coast did it well. The only thing I've got to say is tracking. I don't know what happened this year, Gold Coast, but your tracking was woeful, and then even your results were a little bit. And so I don't know whether you changed providers or something happened, but yeah, that was the only disappointing thing.
They said they had a weather. They said they had a weather issue with the results. So I don't know what that means, but there are timing mats that didn't record. So I know for me, I didn't get a 35 and a 40 timing mat.
Me too.
Time. I did cross them. 100% did cross those timing mats, but for whatever reason, they just weren't working or haven't worked, and the results aren't official.
I didn't even get a time for my half marathon. Like, it doesn't even show that I completed the half marathon. So I have no idea what's happening there.
I was trying to track you guys, and the only one that had started was Tim. Tara hadn't started. Carson hadn't started. So I'm just, I enjoy tracking where people are on the course. And then the last update for Tim on the half marathon tracking was as you're coming down that finishing line and you turn into the
250
finish chute. And he was stuck there for like an hour and a half. So I sort of thought, I reckon they're finished. So yeah, that was the only disappointing thing. So,
and then you see me go back out on the 5K run. What did you guys think of the new additions? So the new additions to the course this year were turning left up SeaWorld Drive and going up past SeaWorld and turning around up there. And then there was a couple of two dog legs that bring you out onto the Gold Coast Highway and back on to avoid the narrow sections around Hedges Avenue and the Esplanade there. What did you guys think of them?
It was the first time I'd run them, so I liked the SeaWorld leg, except it did seem to go for a long time because I'm thinking, is it this far to get to SeaWorld? So once again, just playing mind tricks. But I just love the course. I hadn't run it before, so I didn't know the difference. But going out on that Gold Coast and then coming back, I've seen videos of that at the beach road two-way.
Yep.
And it looked full on, whereas it just seemed to be a lot more leisurely this year, just having one-way traffic. So
yeah, absolutely. Look, there's mixed people that I've talked to about the SeaWorld leg, I actually really enjoy it because it took off an extra 2Ks down the other end for me. So to me, I'm actually quite okay with that. It added something different to the course. I really liked it. It just, it was another one of those places where you could see people coming back on either side of you, so you could cheer people on, see where you were sitting, you could see the paces and everything like that. I actually really enjoyed that SeaWorld leg of it. I enjoyed going back out onto the highway, anything to avoid Hedges Avenue and the crowding that goes on in that little tiny narrow street. And also the camphor on that street is really hard on the ITB when you're getting squished in and you don't get the choice to sit right in the middle of the road. It's really hard on the legs. So to be able to get out onto the highway and avoid that little narrow section, I loved it. I actually thought it was great. Turn around normal, and then coming back. Yeah, it was a lot more leisurely, Tony. You're right. There wasn't that big crowding in where you're going, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to get squished in by the really fast runners. So, enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. I really enjoyed the extra additions. The bit down to SeaWorld was good. It was a little bit narrow, particularly if you had a pacing pack passing you, but it was it was good. I didn't mind that. And then the extra additions out onto the Gold Coast Highway, anything that beats going all the way down to Burleigh. Burleigh's just too far. And if only they can find a way to stop you having to run another 5 or 6 Ks past the start line after you go past it. That's almost cruel, making you run past the start line. Seeing people finish as you got to go out with 12 Ks to still to go.
That's
it's almost cruel.
That's the mental toughness of a marathon, though. So when you see people finishing and you've still got that 12 Ks to go and you can see the finish line right beside you, that's where the mental toughness of that marathon comes into it. And if anyone's listened to Robert De Castella or Deeks, who was on our show earlier, on episode number 5, he does an amazing speech at the start of the marathon. And he will always tell you that the marathon does not start until you're at 30 Ks. The rest of the marathon is actually the last 12 Ks. The first 30 is your warm-up. So, and I agree with him 100%. That's, the last 12 Ks is the mentally tough part. So you can do everything you want.
That bridge was a real real point for me before the race, because I knew that's when I was going to really start to struggle. But what I was most worried about as I'm coming up to the bridge this time was I knew that was an easy out that was there if I wanted it. I could just walk off the course. The car's only, 200 meters away, all said and done. And I don't think I've ever been as focused not to look at people or the crowds or just to try and get through that stretch, so that and I think that Runaway Bay stretch is just that's the worst part of the course for me, unfortunately. I just don't like it heading out. I love coming back, but I don't like going out. It's quite dull and boring just running in suburbia. But I knew I had to get through that crowd. Yet I've heard so many people who are motivated running through that crowd, whereas I just tried to cut them out because I knew I had to be really focused to get through.
You just and that's where I'm saying it is that mental toughness, you being injured, and to get through that where you know that you had that easy out and you didn't take it, Tony. So to me, that is a super impressive effort. And that last 12 Ks is really tough on the Gold Coast, because when you're coming back as well and you hit Marine Parade, you hit a headwind that is not a headwind. Like, you've got a 3K stretch and it's along the beach, beautiful, but it is a massive headwind that you hit. And it doesn't matter if there is no wind at all on course, every single year you will cop a headwind on that part of the course, even if it is dead flat. But yeah, this year was a really windy day. So it was like a really good resistance band pulling you backwards on that one. Yes. Excellent. All right. So any more to add on the Gold Coast, or should we go on to Tim's tips?
Tim's tip.
All right, here we go.
All right. Thanks, Tara. I guess that's my introduction.
That was it.
Go for it.
All right. So I mentioned before I've been sick. You can probably hear it in my voice as well. So my tip this week as we always say, you need to listen to your body, particularly when you are sick. If you start running and pushing yourself when you are sick, you can get really, 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 really sick, and it can get quite nasty. So I know a couple of people who were also quite sick over the weekend, and they really struggled with the reality that they weren't going to achieve their goal times during the weekend. They really struggled emotionally with it all. And I think once I realized I was sick, I realized that this was not my A marathon. I've got bigger fish to fry. I've got Chicago and New York. I was able to easily step away from it, but I know it can be quite hard to step away when it is your a race for the year. But if you don't, and you continue on, it can drain you. It can lead to bigger complications, as I said. So it is important to slow down. It is important to rest. It is important to pull out if you aren't feeling like you're capable of being able to run the race and do it safely. Your health is your number one priority, and making sure you look after your health is absolutely critical. So whilst it might suck that you've trained really hard for the big race and it's not how you planned it to be, it's important to understand it's not the end of the world. There are other events out there, and you will, once you recover from your illness, get back into your training and have the same level or pretty close to the same level of fitness you had beforehand. So it may be that it's worthwhile looking at another race if you have been sick and didn't race the weekend because you were sick. That's my tip.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's really good advice, Tim. You don't want to end up with pneumonia or long-term lung complications or in hospital, or worse still, dead because you've decided that you're going to race a race that really is not worth it. So before this episode is about to end, we will have a chat to Tony about what's on for next week.
Yeah, next week's show is once again just one of those exciting things. When people connect with us online or through Messenger, or we love having a chat to them and see what happens. And our next week's show is one of those things of let's see what happens. So we're speaking with Kai Luck, and Kai is currently in training for the 2024 New York Marathon, as a number of us are. So it seems like everything gets attracted to people running the New York Marathon. Kai's run a number of marathons previously and is a very good friend of our fellow marathon mate, Lucia Benko, who will also be joining us to help us co-host and keep us in line. Now, on this episode, we're going to hear about Kai's story and why New York is so special to him. As always, I cannot wait for that particular episode. So that's what's happening next week, Tara.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Tony. So that wraps up our 1-year anniversary episode for tonight. But before I do finish up, I really do want to say thank you to all of our listeners from all over the world, all of our regularly tuned in listeners and all the new listeners. This little podcast of ours has gone a little bit further than what we ever thought it was going to be. We were always going to go, oh, yep, let's go for 10 and see how we go. But yeah, here we are, episode number 54, and people are still listening. So thank you. Really appreciate it. I feel very privileged to have you all on board. It's been a pleasure creating this content and listening to the feedback we receive. We're extremely grateful for the support and the encouragement, and really looking forward to seeing what the next 12 months can bring to the show as well. So if you like this episode or just this podcast itself, we would really like a feedback on the episodes. If you could like it and leave some comments about why you like listening to The Flying Runner, that would be great. And also if you have any improvements that you want to hear about. So as usual, the video of this episode will be available at Spotify and YouTube. Audio will be on Apple and Amazon and most other popular podcast platforms. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Flying Runner. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.